everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss some philosophical aspect. Today's our question is that is there a perfect life? Especially those who are our audience, young people, they have lot of frustrations. So maybe we can get different guideline from different perspective from different countries, and you can understand how you can make your strategy, especially when you think about your life. And you know that World Talent Economy Forums, now I am doing my live from my business incubations. Uh, Beside that, many universities, school, college, government agencies from around the world, corporation, they are engaging with World Talent Economy Forum, and we are developing our business incubation, especially our speaker, those who want to join in our business incubation, you can join and you can uplift the South Asian people. First, I would like to give chance Professor Ching.
Yes, I like this topic, but the topic invites general discussion without concrete results. So I would like to make the topic more technical with three technical topics. The first one is fuzzy logic versus perfection. The second is the goal of life. The third is purpose of death. Okay. The fact that reality is fuzzy, not exact, shows that we need to make compromise, not just try to make something. Keep talking about perfection. Okay, so there's even in fuzzy logic we will speak of level of perfection. Okay, so there is this unsolvability of the problem of perfection in especially in this case life. Okay, so let's get to the specific topic, the goal of life. Okay, people would love to ask this question, and we have some topic post, some presentation post, and it was one of the fastest presentation being viewed, and the largest presentation being reviewed. What is the goal of life? The goal of life is to determine the value of the life, to see if the life is worth living or not. In other words, whether the life is positive or negative, both to oneself and also to the society. Okay, I think Adam would definitely say for society. Okay, he doesn't care. Spinoza had a terrible life, but his contribution of ethical life is definitely positive. Okay, so this gives some very interesting topic, very interesting results. You view it from this point of view. Like today, animals and plants are cloned because they the most worthy type of in the species. You see, but so the goal of life can be said is the goal of life is to make your clones proud of yourself. Okay, when your clone sees your past, it come from a country, very productive life, which to and make contribution to society. They should be proud. Okay, this is just a joke because we don't have clones. Okay, for humans. Okay, I was visiting my friend Patrick and the grandson of Milton Friedman. Okay, and also Milton Friedman, for his contribution of historical significance, should make his descendants proud. Therefore, I'm very much interested in helping Patrick and his son to, whatever I can do. I'm I have knowledge, and I would like to contribute to them more than anybody else to reward them for the contribution of Milton Friedman. Okay, but you can also ask whether Stalin want to have clones. Maybe not, because he's going to survey this clone. He's suspicious of everything. No, including especially his clone. He's going to compete against him. Okay, people like Sadeh, who's the father of fuzzy logic, and people like Dai Wu, who's the Chinese father of physics. These people, their minds are so good. So in my opinion, okay, their thinking is so clear. They don't talk much, but they make they just you know try to check everything I say and help me with so much technical analysis. I just feel so sad that they passed away. It's such a big loss to society. Today we don't know their value. Okay, we don't have enough knowledge to even judge them. So we need to eventually, be very treat these people, treat Sade. I keep telling you, he's my treasure. Okay, because he thinks so slowly and calmly, so deep. Dai Wu is one of the most analytical Chinese I've ever met. Okay, Chinese are more perceptive than analytical. So these are extremely valued people. I don't know how to preserve them, but there is, to me, is a value, is a life that is worth living, and the contribution is so big, and also to society. You also can ask people things like whether Bill Gates want clone. Obviously, immediately he say I want clone, but later on he think, wait a minute, I'm so competitive, my son will compete against me. so wait a minute, I don't want this clone. So there are ways to think. So this topic is really good, okay, because it says the overall picture. Use something you like, but if you think carefully, it starts to turn into a competitive process. You may not really like your own life. Okay. So another way, if you want you want to approach a perfect life, you need to first like yourself. Then you need to make contribution to society as much as possible. The society want to have you. Okay. Personally, myself, I go to show young people how to dance every week, and they just love me. They say you are my hope, and we just love you to have such a contribution. Okay, to them, they are so happy. They see they can live up to 80 years and still being the best dancer on the floor and have so much fun. This shows there's a hope in their later life. Okay, all this contribution, this they think my life is quite perfect. I think my life is quite perfect. Okay, I think I would compare myself to other people. I wouldn't change my life for anybody else's life. Not, although I'm just focused pretty much purely on knowledge, but it's good enough. Today's society can support somebody like me who focus completely on knowledge. Okay, so this is what I would ask people. I would say a perfect life was a life that you like yourself. Okay, so you're happy. If you're very very happy, then you want to live again. So also you want to contribute as much as you can to society. But on the other hand, the purpose of death should also be mentioned in this. What is the purpose of death? The purpose of death is to eliminate the old culture, which put a drag on the progress of society. So people dies. If they don't die, people like Mao, if he doesn't die, then China will be under dictatorship. He's going to rule it forever. Okay, and that is not totally the wish of all the people, although he made his contribution in his lifetime. Okay, death serves a big purpose to eliminate old ideas, to allow new ideas to come out. Okay, in the book Structure of Scientific Revolution by Thomas Kuhn, he exactly mentioned that. He said, new idea can only come out after all the old people die. Okay, so we need to the purpose of death is the opposite of goal of life. You want people to want old ideas to die away. Okay, but some old ideas so far ahead and they become very popular, after their death. So, this goes hand in hand, goal of life and purpose of death. Okay, so even though my talk is somewhat related to this general discussion, but it gives you some focus on the technical aspect. Okay, and that is my starting point. Thanks.
Thank you. Professor Rob.
Well, perfect life. We start with the definition, and there lies the biggest problem with trying to achieve it. One, our perceptions of what we think might be a perfect life are going to change from the time that we are under 10 to the time we're 70. Our definitions of our priorities change, our interests change. So the definition of a perfect life not only would be individual for each of us, but it wouldn't be static; it would be fluid. And the traditional definition of what a perfect life might be, or what we might wish for, particularly in our younger years, would be probably something that we wouldn't tolerate if we actually had it. If you look at the people that have achieved fame and fortune early, or won lotteries, or have achieved a mammoth amount of wealth in a fairly short period of time, they tend to be, as a group, relatively unhappy. I'm reminded of an old joke where three men are talking. One's a successful attorney, one's a very successful investor, and the third one just works at a gas station. And the third one says, "I'll have what neither of the other two of you will ever have. I have enough." And there lies the conundrum. I've actually spent some time studying some of the wealthiest people in the country, and they cross a line where things seem to be getting better and better for them, and then as they acquire more and more wealth, from a satisfaction with life standpoint, they get worse and worse. In fact, I talked to one of the most successful VCs in Silicon Valley towards the end of his life, and his complaint was that he had all these toys. I mean, gorgeous yachts, mansions, and his friends enjoyed them more than he did. They were burdens. They were things that he had to maintain, and the thing that he thought he really enjoyed, which was the status of leading a large VC. Since he was retired, he basically had a corner office. And while people came in and would talk to him, they didn't take his advice or his positions very seriously. He was just the old guy that sat in the corner and had drank with them. So very unfulfilled, very frustrated, incredibly unhappy, and he had a number of wives, some of them incredibly famous, and all nasty divorces. And in the end. Here you had a guy that pretty much had everything, but was as far from a perfect life as you could probably imagine. I've seen people in prison that were happier than he was. So it comes down. It begins with, if you're trying to achieve a perfect life, and really, I think it's you'd never want to achieve it, because if you reached absolute perfection, what would you have to strive for? And that in and of itself would damage the perfection of the life. And so part of that perfect life has to be engagement. It has to be struggle. It has to be something that you strive for, but not something that overcomes you, that drives you into depression, and that causes you to make bad life or financial choices. So it begins, if you want to try, and this is really something we ought to. I mean, this ought to be a class in school that's recurring. But to conceptualize what would be your best. Let's take perfection out of this. What would be your best life? What would be the path of your path where you would be on any scale? You would be not necessarily content, because I would argue contentment in and of itself would detract from perfection, but where you are optimally happy, where you are engaged, where you're looking forward to getting up every morning, where you're looking forward to whatever work you're doing, where the people around you are the people that are building you up and making you feel, let's say, content is a word, though I may strive for something else in a minute. That's probably the closest to perfection that you're going to get, and recognize it's going to be fluid. That whatever goals you set when you're in your single digits, mine was to be Batman. I didn't make it. Is going to be very different when you get to in your teens, when you get in your 20s. I remember I got in my 20s. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I mean, I've been to college. I've been obviously throughout school. I'd actually had a fairly broad life of studying different jobs, different positions. I'd had a summer where a guy just took me around and just showed me this is how stuff works. It really helped a lot in terms of understanding how stuff worked. It didn't help me much at all in terms of understanding what I wanted to be. I just knew I didn't want to be a indigenous farm worker. That didn't look like any fun to me at all. Nor did I want to be in a mental hospital or in prison. And I honestly think most kids should experience both of those things as a visitor, so they don't experience either one of them as a tenant. But part of understanding what your perfect life would be is going out and learning what is out there. A lot of us, as we come up in life, we see what our parents do. We may see what our friends' parents do, but we get a very narrow view of the choices we have in terms of jobs, living conditions, and environments. You may find that there are other countries that better suit the way you would like to live than the one that you're in. But you won't discover that unless you travel, and you won't discover other jobs, other positions, and other opportunities unless you explore other jobs, other positions, and other opportunities. Our narrow view in terms of a career development is inherently wrong if what we want is to achieve the maximum number of people that are happy with where it is they're going to arrive. And the amazing thing to me is, as we talk about trying to achieve a perfect life or our best life, let's say, is that most of us strive for retirement. And I've interviewed a lot of people that are retired, and I would say the vast majority of them are not happy in retirement because they didn't prepare for it, either financially or mentally. So they end up with an end game, a reward that they discovered that they didn't want. I'll give you an example. So say you strive, your entire life is surrounded your job. You get to retirement. Now suddenly you don't have anything to do. You've got hobbies. And typically what happens is the first year or so people explore those hobbies and they have fun. But a hobby is kind of fun because it's a break from work. If you're doing a hobby 24/7, suddenly it becomes work, and the pleasure can drain out of it. And so in the end, you find yourself, okay, now we're done. But I'd really like to go back and do the job I had before. My father-in-law, my grandfather, after they retired, they spent most of their retired years trying to figure out how to get back into the workforce and do something meaningful again, because that's really where they felt happiest. And for them, the decision to retire itself was a detraction from where they thought their perfect life or their best life was. They were happier before they retired than they were when they did retire, which to me is kind of silly. Why do you strive for something that is suboptimal? So it begins with really giving yourself a focus to look at and understand what makes you happy. What things do you enjoy? Who do you enjoy being around? What behaviors result in the kinds of responses that you really want to have around you? And build a fluid model of what your life would look like if in fact it was perfection from your viewpoint, from your perspective. And remember, keep it fluid. This is something you should probably explore at least once a year, because you want to know where it is you're going. And here's the thing, we'll all have opportunities as we go throughout our career, a choice A, choice B. Do you take the new job? Do you stay with your old job? Do you change companies? Do you change careers? I've watched people that have what I would call the perfect job. They're in a company that respects them. The people around them love them. That their work-life balance is good, and then they suddenly discover that some friend they went to college with is making more money, and now they're unhappy. They had an external experience which had nothing to do with anything in their life. All it did is change their perception. Now they're unhappy. So then they change jobs. They go to a job that pays more. Now the people are more cutthroat. That they're not enjoying the job, and they're having to work longer hours. Their work-life balance goes to hell. And so they traded off a bit more money. And that bit more money, instead of giving them a greater degree of contentment and happiness, it actually disturbed the happiness and contentment they had because they didn't know they had it. So it really does require an introspective approach so that you know with some degree of confidence what it is you enjoy. You're always looking out at the things around you and say, hey, I really like this, or hey, yeah, not so much. And so you're optimizing towards the things that you enjoy and like, and you're moving away from the things, and they may be people. Often we have people in our lives that overly complicate our lives, that drive aggravation. They could be family members, they could be acquaintances, they could be friends. But being able to move ourselves away or correct those kinds of problems becomes part of a path, and that path and that endpoint then becomes an endpoint of having that ideal life. One final comment, and I'll let Adam take over. One of the people I learned a lot from was my best friend's father, and he would, one of the things he would do when he would travel is he would just go to strange places. I mean, for instance, he'd see a restaurant off the side of the road in some city he was traveling through that didn't look like it was well attended, and he'd stop, and he was reasonably wealthy, and he'd rent out the restaurant for the night, and then he'd have the family that ran the restaurant have dinner with him and his family, and they just chat about stuff. What's going on in the world? What are these people dealing with? In other words, he'd understand the culture of the individuals in the room, and to a certain extent, he'd explore what was it that made them happy. And he came back and said, the happiest people I found weren't the wealthiest people. They were the people that were engaged. They had their family around them. They worked every day. They had good work-life balance. They may not have had a lot of things, but what they had was a lot of happiness. The family was close. The kids were respectful. The kinds of problems you see in very wealthy families just didn't exist in those. And it was kind of a life-changing thing for him, and to a certain extent by proxy. It was to me as well, because it means that there is no one perfect path. The perfect path for you is going to be very different than the perfect path for me. But the goal is to discover that path. I think it was Yogi Berra that says, if you don't know where you're going, it's pretty clear you're not going to get there. And so the point is, you need to determine where it is you want to go, what makes you happy. And don't determine this by just looking at the things other people have, the fast cars, the big mansions, the yachts. By the way, yachts are just a nightmare. Having owned a couple boats, that's just nuts. But the big boat doesn't make it any better. But discover what it is you think would make you happy. Make that fluid. Always observe, and throughout your life, alter the target to match your changing ideals and perceptions. And then you can at least approach what would be maybe not perfection, but what would be the ideal balance of work and life and love and family that's perfect for you, that's ideal for you. And so you're always working to optimize. And at no point with that kind of a goal should you ever drift to having the problem so many people I've interviewed have had, where they've had happiness and they didn't realize they had it, and then they lost it. It's kind of the adjunct, or the analogy is the Philosopher's Stone story, where that guy gets on the beach and he's trying to find the Philosopher's Stone, and he goes through billions of stones, and what makes the difference is the stone's supposed to be warm on the beach, and he finally hits the stone, but he's been throwing the stones away so much he throws the stone away without realizing it's the Philosopher's Stone. So he finds what he wants, but because he's not focused on the find and focused on the task, he loses it. And that's very often what happens to us all. We don't focus on the right things, and as a result, if we achieve them, we lose them, or we never achieve them because we never knew it was there. And Adam, I think you're next.
Has he frozen? Okay. Thank you very much. A perfect life. That's a very interesting subject, a very interesting topic, very interesting and compelling question. Quite an unusual and unique theme today. But yeah, I've always been of the belief that perfection as a state, as a goal, as an achievement is forever unattainable, yet one that we can still get closer and closer to without ever actually touching it properly. With every um, without ever being 100%, you can be 99% of the way, then 99.9% of the way, and then 99.99% the distance, and so on and on. Much like Zeno's arrow was described in Zeno's paradox. To get from A to B, the arrow must go halfway, but to get halfway, you need to cross the halfway line before that, and so on and on. And does that mean time is pixelated, made of discrete chunks? Who knows? But anyway, the state of perfection, I believe, is something you can get closer and closer towards, but maybe one that can never be reached completely. A bit like infinity, really. Just as we can have infinities of different sizes, one infinity is bigger than another, or one infinity is infinitely more infinite than other smaller infinities, and so on. And someone could be more perfect than someone else who is less perfect, but that less perfect person still might be more perfect than someone else who is even less perfect, some more. But of course, to talk about perfection, we have to define it. Different people would submit different definitions and meanings. Architects, mathematicians, musicians, etc., might answer the question using numbers, proportions, ratios, harmonies. Statesmen might answer it as a harmonious and peaceful society where there is order and hierarchies and certain morals and value systems are adhered to by obedient citizens. An artist might answer it by saying that a painting, for example, a painting is perfect because it has some mistakes or rough edges. Technically, it's not brilliant, but still full of soulfulness and meaning. So that could then be described as such a painting is perfect in its imperfection, which of course is a paradox. It's like the ancient Japanese art of repairing broken plates, cups, and crockery with like a golden ceramic paste, so it becomes more beautiful after already having been broken. Kintsugi, I believe it is called. This thought could be applied another way. We could be tempted to say the perfect life is a life without excessive and gratuitous pain and suffering, loss and destruction, etc. But a lot of these are valuable learning experiences which are painful and unpleasant at first, yet the lessons learned from these events happening help to improve characteristics that are prerequisites to an increased quality of life as a result of being more cautious, more wise, more risk averse, which of course crosses over with much of what Professor Rob was saying. Of course, what he said is true. I think if I was a billionaire, I would be so anxious to lose all or even just some of my assets that I couldn't really enjoy it all as fully as I'd like. And furthermore, one's definition of perfection or a perfect life changes, not just from person to person, but also from the same one person, depending on how old he or she is. I know my ideal vision of a perfect life or perfect world is different to what I envisioned it would be even just 5 years ago. But of course, like I said, people's preferences vary too wildly for there to be a neat and definite answer or solution. But Rob's story about his father was very inspiring. We should all aspire to be lovers of life, bon vivants, Epicurean enjoyers of life. So I think that's probably the best answer. And don't be a cautionary tale like the Philosopher's Stone guy. My thoughts.
Thank you, Professor Ching.
Yeah, yeah. From the viewpoint of nature, also from my point of view, okay, which I try to decipher what nature wants. Okay, a perfect life is to grow to 65 years old, when a person is physically and intellectually mature. And then live on fully to 105. It says, so today we have the society give people the impression that we're going to grow from young to old by depending on the growth hormone. After we get old, then we fade and die. It does not make much sense. Okay, I already live a long time. I don't see this. I don't see this society view. Okay, the only time you can live fully like Rob, or maybe not like Adam. Okay, like Rob is to have fully intellectually mature. Okay, physically, most people think they're fading, but I don't think so. I think if you have enough knowledge, you will not fade physically. Like me, every week I measure myself to see if I'm growing older or younger. Before COVID-19, I felt I was growing younger. So I told my friends in medical science, I said, oh, I feel like going younger. They say, okay, send your blood to somebody and they measure it. And they measured I was 28 younger than my chronological age. Okay, so this is society try to, just look at the past. They don't see the future. Future for young people is expect to become mature physically and intellectually by the time 65. And after 65, it's time really to live. Okay, the physical part, I'm trying to prove that the physical part can be taken care of. The intellectual part depends on everybody to set himself to see what kind of mentors they can get. You see, when one is young, one has this growth hormone which protect you from sickness and help you grow into a mature body. Okay, and after 65, the growth hormone decreased to 20%. After 80, maybe decreased to 10%. So there's a different type of life you need to live. You want to live based on your knowledge of your physical self. In my case, I try to keep all the cells in my body happy. Okay, have blood flowing to all parts of my body. So that's the key. You have to take all the cells in your body. The cell itself has probably don't have much idea of, especially stem cells. They have no idea how old they are. Okay, so if you keep all of them healthy, and they would naturally replace in the body. After I have extensive study of the physiology of human body, I find that pretty much, you have, you can stay, you can keep the cells stay at its, the cells do not repair itself. Okay, this idea of repair is incorrect. The idea of replacement, usually cell dies and replace. Okay, once you want to replace the cells, you need to drink lots of water. You got to take care. You have a problem of waste management. If you can manage your waste and also input nutrition and have enough stimulate so the body will rebuild itself, it seems like the cells will continue to become healthy for as long as I can see, for my personal case. But I see there's some difficulty. There's the brain, the heart, the lung, they all deteriorate. The immunity after COVID-19, not only have to keep my immunity strong, I need to keep I have to not only the stamina strong, I need to keep my immunity strong. So now I have a double job of age reduction. But that's all right. Recently, I find that I'm getting back to my old shape to get both immunity and the stamina constant, not changing. So there should be a new definition from society to tell people not this idea of growing old and die. You live during the period when you're mature intellectually and physically. Okay. And so, Rob gave the perfect example. Okay. He said he was young. When he was young, he was just living. That's the way to do it. Okay. You just, being protected by growth hormone, you grow mature intellectually. And you have association with some mentor, like he says his best friend, the father, some mentor guide him, then so he become intellect mature. Now he should enjoy life. But Rob, I think he probably think he's not going to be physically as strong as when he was young. That is not true. Okay, you can turn your hair white if you take less shower and eat more black bean. Powders, you get like me. I supposed to be much whiter than your hair. But it turned out that I just accidentally drink some. At least my hair is straight. It's not, like old people. They have a tendency of curly hair, which just give themselves away. You see, there's a ways to strengthen every part of your body, except we don't have the knowledge. So when you get older, you need to have the knowledge to take care of yourself. It's unlike when you're young. But I would like to add a few more things. We need to also consider the following. The perfect life for insects, animals, humans, aliens, and the universe, they are all different. Okay. So this topic actually can extend into everything, and it covers everything. People should learn the whole picture. You see, the purpose and also this is the perfect life is define the purpose of existence, what you try to achieve. Okay. So for insects, they try to satisfy their instincts. Okay, animals try to be left alone and to become pets of humans. Okay, pets have the perfect life. Okay. And some animal living in the wild, they have perfect life if humans do not interfere with them. Okay. So there is different ways. So we need to respect all this. Okay. Humans purpose of life is try to self-create himself. Okay. In my opinion, after all this learning I have done, I feel that everything we're doing is try to achieve self-creation. We try to see if we can create ourselves. Even today's robot we think they're so great. But ultimately, when the robot is advanced to an ultimate state, it will become a human. Okay, the software will become DNA. So basically, we are trying to achieve self-creation. But before self-creation, whoever created us has already a plan for us to grow and become what we become. Okay, they have a complete plan. It doesn't need to be changed. Okay, in my solution value, I find that anytime future expectation changes, you have to recalculate. You have to recalculate. But for the creator, he just make one plan and everything unfolds beautifully. And we can do that only after we can self-create. After we self-create, then we can change ourselves. Otherwise, everything happens according to the plan of our creator. This is my belief. Okay, you can follow my belief, or you form something different or even better. You see. So, what the alien want, we don't know. They are more intelligent than we are, and I can only say the human alien will try to contribute to the intelligence of the universe. Okay, there's an intelligence in universe, which in my opinion is accumulated in DNA. Okay, DNA is the software of life. It is actually the intelligence of the universe accumulated from the infinite past. So what we are trying to do is to enhance this infinite intelligence in the form of DNA intelligence. Okay, finally, I want to say that this from my personal experience is a contribution to the progress of society may invite persecution from the establishment, such as in the case of Jesus Christ, in the case of Socrates, in the case of Galileo, in the case of many other people who just try to see ahead of the established. You see, but as a dancer, everyone loves me. Okay, when I go talk about intellectual things, they run away. Okay, in my party with Patrick Freeman and I offended the half of the people there. Okay, they disagree with my view, which may be too far ahead of the establishment. But for dance, if I dance, everybody rush toward me. Okay, so in my case, when I generate happiness for my dancing fans, they make me the happiest of them all. Okay, so basically, I'm not happy right here talking about this, but I have 3 days of dancing. I'm so happy. Okay, cannot not be happy because this is the way I live my life, and it just naturally happy. I become very happy. So my personal advice to young people is for perfect lives, is to become a good dancer. Okay. This is my personal experience. I don't know any other way. Okay. Or you become a good entertainer. Okay. Entertainer that most love people. Okay, let me tell you some my private observation. I went to party. I see this guy look just like Dennis Quayle, Mac Ray, and the girls. They are married. Okay, they just couples look like them. They couldn't be them. Okay, I would suspect the first clone will be entertainers. They love themselves so much, and the world loves them. Okay, so not people like us. It's the society, the establishment wouldn't allow that until we reach such a stage. The society is completely mature. Then they will invite knowledge, all new knowledge, and they will analyze it. Today we have no way to analyze knowledge because we don't have the solution value. We cannot analyze anything. Knowledge is one of the most difficult to analyze because it really go to infinity. So basically, that's my advice to all the young people. You see, to be a good dancer, basically.
Thank you, Mr. Martley.
How's it going? Glad to be here. Glad to talk about the perfect life and all in that space. And definitely, it's all about, as Mr. Ching was saying, it's all about attitude and having a positive attitude. I know that a lot of times folks will say, things are going on in life, that there are all kinds of depressions happening, whether that's around the pandemic or whether that's around the war in Ukraine or a number of other things. So I've had friends ask me, you've always got a smile on your face. How do you keep that smile on your face? And I'm like, well, I just choose to have a positive attitude, sometimes make some jokes and lighthearted comments as well. But humor is one of the ways that you can have that positive attitude and all along those lines. So I definitely think that is important. I also think that, as Mr. Ching was saying, that it's important to observe those that are around us, including Mother Nature. And I'm a big fan of doing that because sometimes just seeing a butterfly dancing around or watching a bee or a simple rabbit can lead to that happiness that we all need to have. And I definitely think that one of the perfect life attitudes is to observe and enjoy those things that are around us. If you happen to be on a cruise and you happen to see the ocean or something along those lines, take a minute, breathe the air, enjoy what's happening in your space and all along those lines. I was going to make a slight counter to something that Dr. Cheng said because I was listening, didn't hear everybody else's thoughts about the perfect life. Dancing is good if you are a good dancer. I unfortunately have 2 left feet, but I don't mind sitting there snapping my fingers and doing all along those lines because there are ways that you can dance without necessarily dancing and all in that space. So like I said, I might do some voiceover work or do some other things that add to my enjoyment of life. And of course, I love doing the radio and the podcast and stuff like that. So that puts a smile on my face as well. And yes, I have been known to shuffle a feet here and there, but I also know that I am glad that they invented the strobe light, because it makes even us bad dancers look like the best dancers of all time. Because with a strobe light, you can sit there, and I see Adam shaking his head, and you can be doing all kinds of crazy dance moves, and that strobe light makes it look very good and all in that space. So that's one of the things I was going to say. I was also going to argue that, yes, I have friends in the entertainment field, and yes, the next clones may be the entertainers, but they don't always have the most perfect life, as we know from some of the gossip rags, but also just from observation, because a lot of times those entertainers are struggling, and they're trying to struggle to survive and trying to struggle to make a living, and all along that kind of space. So that is something that goes on, that they look like they're happy on the outside, but sometimes they aren't. As a matter of fact, I just read a quote recently from Elon Musk that said that he's actually one of the most miserable men in the world, and all along those lines, that he actually came out with that statement that he is, while people think that he has all this great riches and that this riches is going to lead to his happiness, he was like, not necessarily so. He's stressed sometimes, maybe even more stressed than the average man, because of all that money and the fact that he's trying to go out to space and all of that. And I sometimes find that there are some interesting things in that as well that can add to our humor and add to our life. I don't know if Rob knows this, but I was watching, because Pod TV discovered this lovely thing called public domain, which means you can release old movies because they're in the public domain. So I found Tales of Tomorrow, and there was an actual episode that we have now aired called Test Flight. It was about folks going up into space because they wanted to escape the craziness in the world, and they wanted to have this industrialist that was going to go into space and all of that. Rob, does that sound familiar? Does that sound like something that is going on right now with Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and a number of these other folks, even the guy Richard Branson with Virgin Air and all of that? Guess what, Rob? Guess what, Mr. Ching? And guess what, Adam? This movie was made in 1951. So it was made all the way back then, and they must have had some foreshadowing going on, that they knew that in 2022, some 70 years later, we would be trying to do this to find this kind of world of happiness, because sometimes we get frustrated with what's going on here in this world, so we want to escape and go someplace else. I guess we want to go ruin it up there for them as well, because I'm actually one of those people that thinks, hey, there's a billion light years out there and everything. There's got to be some other life out there. And maybe they're having the same conversation. As a matter of fact, Dr. Sharif, I think that it's exactly at this moment, somewhere in the far distant planets, in another lifetime, in another universe, in another place, there is a doppelganger, Dr. Sharif, and a doppelganger, Mark, and a doppelganger, Rob, that are having this exact same conversation. They might have just taken it in a different approach and all along those lines. So what do you think? Is it possible that we could be having the same conversation in another part of what's going on? And we definitely, one of the things I was going to say, just to wrap it up in my thoughts, is that we need to try to be as healthy as possible in all of our aspects in our life. So we definitely need to try to be as physically fit as possible, even though we've been living this very sedentary lifestyle lately. We definitely need to exercise our brain power, our emotional power. And one of the problems that has been going on in the world, in my mind, is that a lot of people are not paying enough attention to their emotion and to their mental health, which is why we have a mental health crisis here in the world right now. And some people might even say that we have a spiritual crisis also. But definitely all of those aspects of our life, I think that we need to pay attention to in order to make it as perfect as possible. But definitely that's one of the things I try to do, is add a little humor, add a little fun, and definitely try to have some good conversations, but also try to stay as healthy as possible in all of those realms that I just mentioned. But that's just some of my quick thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Rob.
And this will be a wrap for me because I've got to break at 9. All right. We drifted into science fiction a little bit there. I'm going to drift a little bit farther. A couple of quotes from different science fiction movies. One from Buckaroo Banzai, which is, no matter where you go, there you are.
Yep.
If the problem with your happiness, which is often the case, is you, then flying off planet or going someplace else won't escape the problem. You've got to fix you first. And that goes back to my earlier comments on really understanding the dynamic, setting a goal early, making sure the goal is flexible, and making sure the goal is based on the broadest set of experiences that you can possibly have. So it's an informed goal. The other one I want to point out, though, is from Star Trek, original Star Trek show. And it was from Mr. Spock. And I won't give the entire plot, but the short of it was he's supposed to go back to Vulcan and marry his love, and she's fallen in love with somebody else. And decides she doesn't want to date him anymore, and so doing, she picks Captain Kirk as a champion. They fight to the death. Captain Kirk falls supposedly dead. He's not. And after that, Spock is done with this girl. You figure it might happen a little sooner than that, but having said it, yeah, she's hot, but she's not that hot. But he says to the guy that's now going to marry her, says, after time, you may find that having is not so pleasing a thing after all as wanting. It's not logical, but it's often true. And that's probably to me, the kind of the core thing to discovering happiness. It's over the years, I've watched people, have car collections. They might have several. Yeah, Larry Ellison, I think, has a fleet of yachts, as do some of the Google guys. And that one guy that I mentioned earlier, that was the VC that said, my friends really enjoyed my toys more than I did. It just stuck with me that, we can visit the car collections of a lot of people. We don't need to own them. And we can visit airplane collections. We can see Larry Ellison's yachts in pictures or go buy them. We don't have to pay to maintain them or to staff them. And thereby we can probably get more enjoyment out of the stuff than the people that own them do, because they've got to maintain them. They've got to hire the people to maintain them. They've got to pay for them. They're always on the hunt for more because they're never happy with what it is they've got. And so they've got all that turmoil where we can just walk in and look at the cars. The amazing thing is we probably can look at the cars more often, or these collections more often than the people that own them do. A lot of people that have art collections, they lend them out to museums, and then they're not in their house. I mean, they'd have to go to the museum to see the art. You can go see the art just the same as they can, and you'd have to buy the art. So in the end, in many cases, not owning something can provide far greater enjoyment than owning it. You don't have to own it and control it to enjoy it. And so if you get that in your headset and you realize that hot girl or guy that you think is going to make you happy, that hot car or mansion or yacht, just stay with me, yachts. The yachts are going to do it, and just realize they're not. The happiness is within you. The perfect life is within you, and if you can't achieve a near perfect life with little, you will not achieve a near perfect life with a lot, because the lot adds a lot of complexity. It brings people around you. I mean, look at the celebrities. We were talking to a celebrity a few years back, and the really sad thing, and it was really funny, because towards the end of his life, a big movie star, he approached me in an airport. Never met him before. He walked up and he said, it's really been an incredibly sad day for me, and I'm like, well, why? And I'm looking at this guy. He was older, and he past his prime and no longer acting. But I like that this guy was famous. I mean, Jesus, this guy. I watched his movies, war movies, and action movies, and it was just a great guy. And he said, on the entire flight I was just on, I was preparing my will and thinking about who I was going to give all my stuff to. He was just terribly depressed, and it's well, yeah, and I thought about it. With celebrity, you're often surrounded by people that are only around you because of that celebrity. They don't care who you are. Backstab you in a moment, and switch to the next highest celebrity once you're past your prime, and you never know who your friends are. You never know who's got your back, and at the end of your life, and instead of reveling in your success, you're thinking about who's real and who's not, that I can leave my crap to, and it's like, I don't want to end up like that. I mean, it's like that was my major moment. I looked at this guy and I said, here he had, I'd been acting myself for several years at the time. And I looked at the guy and said, that's not the end I want. I mean, it was really, I didn't know what I wanted yet, but I knew that wasn't the end that I wanted. And it caused a major change in perception. So my one final piece of advice is, if you think you want a particular future life, meet people that have it. See if that's the life that you truly want. In other words, always make sure your goal is solid. And we've got the internet. We've got things we never had when I was a kid, that you can look at this stuff without even leaving your chair and recognize really quickly that maybe where you think you want to go isn't where you want to be at all. And what you need to do is figure out where you want to be. And once you figure that out, And once you and as long as you keep altering it as you age and as your conditions change, you've got a much better chance of achieving that optimum happiness, that near perfect life that we're talking about, than if you take an early target, make a run at it, and suddenly find out after a long life you are not at all where you want to be. So that's my final thing. Go out and meet some of the people that are where you think you want to be, and figure out, do you really want to be there? And ask those probing questions. How's the family? Are you happy at home at night? When you retire, what's going to happen to you? And in the end, what was their life goals? And is this where they wanted to be? I think they'll be telling, and they'll help you refine your own life and existence. And that's it for me today.
Hey, Rob, you just said a mouthful and all in that space. But as you were speaking, I was thinking of a couple of things. One is, how often have you seen the young man, and I'm sure that Adam, because he's probably the youngest of us here and everything, can relate, that thought that they wanted the pretty young lady, the cheerleader or whatever style of woman that they thought they wanted. And after they got that particular person, they found out that they were not all of that they weren't all that they were cracked out to be, how shallow they were, or a number of other things.
It happens a lot. Certainly happened to me. I dated the head cheerleader when I was in high school. Took her out once, decided that was not where I wanted to be at all. So yeah, it's back to that Spock quote. Sometimes it's not so pleasing thing after all is wanting. It's wanting and having are two very different things, and sometimes wanting is the better thing to have. But then I've got to run.
And along those same lines, and then I'll shut up as well. But the other thing that I was thinking as you were talking was, there was I think it was a Rolls Royce collection. They actually stayed here in Durham. It was a nice gentleman. I think he had some wealth and everything, and he collected it, and he had it in what we consider like a warehouse district here in this area. So he had this lovely collection of Rolls Royces. He opened it up. I think they even had parties there occasionally. I never went to one of those parties, but I hear they were amazing parties. And then the time that more people paid attention to it was when there was a fire, because there was a fire not that long ago. And guess what got destroyed? All of those Rolls Royces.
Yeah, it can happen. I got to run. Take care.
Thank you. Mr. Adam.
Thank you very much. Yes. When Hugh mentioned nature, it got me thinking, can a natural life bring one closer to having a perfect life? Can being in nature help one lead a more perfect life? Would nature allow it? Would nature allow anyone to have a perfect or even near perfect life? I would be lying, of course, if I said I don't like nature, because I do. Or more accurately, I like, enjoy, admire many aspects of nature. Many aspects of nature I find to be beautiful, like we all do, to be beautiful in an evolutionary aesthetic sense, at least. But I don't feel the same way about all of nature, because there is always death, disease, suffering, pain, and excruciating demises, predator and prey, predations everywhere, prey being consumed by even bigger and stronger prey. So if we can imagine a crocodile predating a zebra, if the zebra could talk, I'm quite confident it would say, my life is far from perfect right now, especially because I'm bleeding to death slowly and agonizingly. However, imagine we have a biologist or zoologist or naturalist next to us, and we ask him or her about the same topic. They would answer, this is perfection, because what we've witnessed is an act of natural balance. This was meant to happen. This was supposed to happen. The croc is helping to keep the zebra numbers down so that they don't overpopulate, and the croc is satiated. It is a microcosm for cosmic duality and balance, and so it is good despite the zebra's suffering and so on. But for reasons such as these, a back to nature approach might not be the best way to approach the task of living a perfect life, even though it is initially counterintuitive, because intuition and instinct would tell us to go back to nature and live more in harmony with nature if we are to find a perfect life or more perfect life. So a near perfect life might be one that inevitably has support from human artifice, human ingenuity, technology and machines, and more automation too, perhaps. But of course, the dark cloud of unforeseen consequences and circumstances looms menacingly over many of our achievements, unfortunately. So is a perfect life possible? Probably not, but a near perfect one could be. We have a saying in the UK, or in the whole of the Anglosphere, we have a saying, the the grass is not always greener on the other side. And Rob made an excellent point. Wanting and liking are two things that unfortunately don't always align, and that can really mess people and their lives up. When he mentioned retirement, it got me thinking about my own grandparents on my dad's side, my dad's mum and dad. My granddad retired from electrical engineering. I remember it was at the age of 55 or somewhere around the mid 50s, which is crazy to me. I remember everyone except him thought it was a bad move. I remember my grandmother being blown away by such a decision because she didn't know until after he'd handed his notice in. And mid 50 odd is way too young to retire. And I think it's affected him more than he would care to admit. He couldn't look after himself after my grandmother died because he relied upon her so much. And then he died. But it wasn't pleasant. And all of that extra time afforded so early to him, I think led to him misusing some of it. Of course, he had hobbies and interests, any hobbies and interests, but he also feuded with neighbours for years. And I concluded that it was an ideal example of another saying: "The devil makes work for idle hands." I also think that people use the wrong value systems, the wrong metrics which to compare their lives with. Instead of like pleasure and pain or wealth or big or poor, I think people should try and make their life as meaningful as possible. A meaningful life, a meaningless life, is a better value system than other ones like pleasure and pain or being rich or poor. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mark, what's your concluding remarks?
It's actually here what Adam was saying, and he's making a lot of very valid points and all in that space, because a lot of times we do need to pay attention to nature, as I was saying earlier, and sometimes that whole notion of what would nature say back to us and everything, because sometimes nature does let us know that it likes us, but it also doesn't like some of the ways that we add to it and some of the things that we do to it and that space, and sometimes it gets its own matter of revenge. Some people would say that that's what the hurricanes and other things are, and definitely if we go into spaces like into the woods and other things, I'm sure that the bears are going like, wait a minute, you're destroying our homes and you're calling that progress. So what may be a perfect life for us may not be all that perfect for the rest of the wildlife and the rest of the whole nature continuum and all in that space. So definitely that is stuff that we have to pay attention to as we try to go about and have what we can think of as being a perfect life in some way or another. So I definitely think that we need to pay attention to how our impact of our having this perfect life is going to be working in the grander scheme of the world and all in that space. And I do believe that sometimes we just need to take a moment to separate ourselves from all the amazing things that can add to the perfect life. Because while I'm right now on this computer, and I love the computer and I love the telephone that's near me and everything, there are times that you need to turn the devices off and just kind of relax and sit there with yourself and all along those lines. One of the things that frustrates me, and that's the point I was going to get to, was what Adam was telling about his dad and everything, is that my own dad is 82 and very active, very much active in the art space. But I have some other friends that went into nursing homes and in the places like that, some that were closer to my age. And I just hit 60 on July and all of that space. But there are some places that are very good in those kind of communities. They try to keep you active and involved. And those are people that are of the age of around 60s that are part of a cheerleading squad that is definitely made of members that are older. I know of a quilting circle that is made of members that are older, and I definitely even know of a folk singing group that is made of people that are of an older age as well. So those are examples of people staying engaged, staying involved in stuff that they are passionate about and care about. But unfortunately, a lot of times we sweep the elderly away and we don't do enough to help them as they get older. And with that happening, we don't do enough in terms of trying to help them maintain as much of a perfect life as possible as they go into quote unquote the sunset years and all along those lines. As I told y'all before, I'm going for 200. So this is really my 20s and my 30s because I'm going for 200. I know it's not humanly possible, but a part of attitude and part of life and being perfect is setting goals and setting ambitions. Now, whether they are realistic or not, that's a whole other conversation. But I can go for 200, say that I'm going for 200. And if that's the case, 60 is the due 25, because 60 would be just a little bit over the 200 mark and all in that space. But I do get frustrated when I hear some of these elderly groups that are, when they get into that space, their families aren't taking care of them and they're not being absorbed into some of the family cultures the way that some societies do, because there are a lot of societies that respect their elderly, and or they are just kind of like thrust into these centers that don't have the kind of activities to keep them active and engaged. And I think that that's why in some cases in the West, some people, when they go to those centers, it's soon after that they are no longer here on the planet, that they pass away, and all in that kind of way, because I don't think that they are encouraged to maintain their life and live it to the fullest and all in that space. So that's one of the reasons that I am so glad that my dad and my mom, and mom just turned 80 recently, are still very active in the things that they do in the community. And while dad is very active with his hard work, mom may be retired, but she is active as being one of the matriarchs in the family unit and all of that. So she still gets around as well. So I'm just glad that they are both very active in their early 80s, and I'm hoping that they go for 200 or 250 as well. So on that note, I'll leave, and I'm hoping that Adam goes for 300, because that way he would only be a teenager right now, because he would only be like around 10 years old or something in that space if he's going for 300. So Adam, are you going to go for 300?
I'm 33 next month.
No, but are you going to go for 300? Because if you're 33 next month, 300 would be 1/10 of 300 would make you 10.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I missed it. Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'd like to live forever, actually. Yeah, like Ray Kurzweil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Professor Ching, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Okay, yeah, I, my conclusion is I'm against establishment view that people should retire at 65. Okay, this is what the Mark proposed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you should live your full life or perfect life when you are mature intellectually and physically. Okay, when you're growing up, you really just growing up. This is nature's plan to give you growth hormone for you to grow and for one to learn. Okay, so only after 65. Today we probably need to 75 to have the full spectrum knowledge absorbed. Okay, but regardless, a person who just try to learn before that time, and also to grow before that time. Thus, established life cannot even start. Okay, by this establishing view, life cannot even start, let alone perfect. Okay, the society hasn't even reached the point that we perceive what a life should be, a complete life should be. We cannot make it even complete, and not, so this perfection is probably still way off. You see, so final conclusion is meaning of life is in its value. Okay, how much value derived from your life? Sometimes some people like to help people, that's their value. Some people like to be happy, that's their value. So meaning of life is its value. Purpose of existence is to contribute to knowledge, especially the DNA intelligence of the universe. So basically, that's the way to see this very huge topic of a perfect life.
Hey, Mr. Ching, I know we're wrapping up. I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that happened to mom when she was serving on the board of a bank, she was actually a foundation president at one point as well. But when she was serving on the board of the bank, they actually forced her out of retirement. And I think she was around 65 or 70 at that time, because they had some sort of age rule that you had to be retired by that age. So I think that she turned whatever that cutoff age was, but it was something in that space of 65 or 70. And and they let her go to the end of the year. So I think she turned that in like May, but they let her go to the end of the year. And I can tell you that even now at 80, Mom is probably one of the sharpest women that I know, and probably the bank can use her advice right now. Because if I can just be ahead and tell you what the bank is, it's the bank that is now known as Truist. And I'm going like, we don't even know what the bank name means. And Mom probably would have voted for the approval of that name and all along those lines, because folks are trying to figure out how BB&D went to Truist and what the heck Truist means and why they went with that name. And she probably would have voted against it. But I just think that she has some amazing knowledge and some amazing information that she could have contributed even now. But like I said, they had this crazy mandatory retirement age for folks. And I know that happens even in academia as well.
Yeah, that I totally agree. This idea of retiring, you see, today the world has lots of problems. So it appears to reflect in the fact that all the world leaders are very old. You see, they need somebody mature to guide the world into a more rational state. You see, you cannot experiment with young people coming out and give us all kinds of new ideas. Okay, now we are in I think it's still going to be the leaders will still be older, mature people, you see, but they are all over 65. So, they need to change the view. The view is that if you have to have knowledge to live to 200. Okay, you say 300. Okay, good. Yeah. So you need to have the knowledge to live at the old age. It's a different. I have a theory, the steady state theory of aging. In other words, you have steady state and you have the growing state. Okay, the steady state is the important part. This is exactly Mark is talking about. This idea of living the steady state and how to live it. Okay, we don't have knowledge of that. I'm really not for the current life science, because the pandemic was caused by nature and solved by nature. All the intervention of men shows that they give positive and negative intervention. So in other words, they prove that there's no life science. Okay, for me, I'm very experienced with social science. I know there's no social science. I say it publicly, okay, because I predict both Siemens law and the subprime vote, and I try to help solve the subprime vote. If those guys, they don't talk, during the crisis, and they all claim they know how to do it, they still don't know how to do it. Okay. Not enough knowledge. Okay, so basically we need knowledge to live past 65 and be still active. We have to have knowledge to contribute toward the universal intelligence. If you don't have enough knowledge, you don't even know the old knowledge, how can you contribute to the new knowledge? Okay, so basically that's my comment, appreciation for Mark. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. This is really great discussions. I believe it brings a lot of interesting story from different speakers, and it's really helpful for our audience. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible with your government agencies, corporation, and academy. Thank you, everyone. And I just want to share this year we have a very, very special conference with Dhaka University, December 28 and 29. I want to invite you all. We are also providing keynote speaker, Professor Philip. He will join in Dhaka. Beside that, next year, April 5 to 7, we have very, very special conference on Nikola Tesla technology. So I want to invite you all to join in this conference. I want to give a special thanks to BBC for promoting our projects. Beside that, I want to give thanks to European Innovation Alliance for supporting our projects, and all of the universities and the scholars, those who joined with World Talent Economy Forum in this Nikola Tesla Technology Conference. Thank you, Professor Jean, Mr. Adam, and Mr. Markley for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. Thank you, bye-bye, and take care.
Take care. Bye.